It's 9:30 in the morning on Saturday the 22nd of October 2010. So this is number 134 in my list of Sun and Moon signs. I'm looking at the Sun in Pisces with the Moon in Taurus. Now, this is actually not a bad combination on the surface. Pisces and Taurus are actually quite friendly with each other. They're both very sensual. They're both quite artistic. Pisces is very connected with the seas, the deep seas. It's very emotive and feelingful. Taurus is connected with the earth. It's very grounded, down to earth, pragmatic and practical. The Sun in Pisces individual, the thing about the Pisces is they don't really have what most other people consider to be clear boundaries. The Sun in Pisces people, they can be the world's worst fascist or the most compassionate and empathic of the lot. Many people with the Sun in Pisces consider themselves to be walking psychic sponges because they pick up so much stuff from the world around them that they've got to get 10 minutes on their own every day to discharge, otherwise they end up like a fuse box with too much electricity passing through it. They will feel more comfortable when walking by the seaside or by a river, stream or lake. Very empathic, very compassionate, very kind and generous and big-hearted, and at times absolutely ruthless. They can put all of their emotions and feelings on hold and be, if necessary, callous or cruel in order to get the job done. These are the people who will spend all their time looking after their pets and their animals and loving their animals, and then when it's time for the dog, when the dog's dying and when the dog's got cancer and they're in pain, they'll go, right, okay, I'll put the needle in. And they'll euthanize them without a moment, because they know that what they're doing is necessary for the greater good, and they'll do it without a thought. Sun in Pisces people, they genuinely want to help people less fortunate than themselves, but there is a caveat here in that they've got to remember that they're a servant, not a slave, and they do things for other people because they want to, not because the world wants them to, otherwise they end up feeling obliged or taken for granted. They know better than many the difference between being alone and being lonely. The Moon in Taurus is supposed to be the best place in the sky for the Moon, and it's actually very good because Taurus deals with the grounded, the solid, the practical, the down-to-earth, the sensual in terms of things like food and music, and its appreciation of the quality things in life. The Moon deals with one's feelings and emotions. So people with the Moon in Taurus are generally quite down-to-earth people. They're grounded, solid, practical. They can get quite possessive. Well, that's mine, and he's mine, and you're mine, and it's all mine, and do you want to argue? I'm being a bit provocative here, but Moon in Taurus people, they need to have the sense of feeling loved and some money and food and possessions in order to give them a degree of emotional security. It's not that they're insecure without these things, but they do go a long way towards helping. So, Moon in Taurus, generally the best place in the sky, but it can be a bit accumulative or acquisitive. So there's a need here for them to realise that quality is better than quantity as far as possessions and assets and things of value and worth go. So when you put the two together, you've got a nice balance between the sensual and the empathic side of Pisces, with the material and the sensual side of Taurus. This combination would make very good cooks because they'd appreciate the subtleties of food and the sensualities of different tastes. So I've got a few people here as an example. So let's start with the chart of the perhaps what some would say was the greatest chess player of all time, Bobby Fischer, mired in controversy. He was a Pisces with the Moon in Taurus. His Pisces Sun was lovely. It was trine Jupiter, but in the 8th house, and he did have Pluto on the ascendant in Leo, so I think there's an element of the Scorpio about him, even though he never had anything in Scorpio. But his Moon, His moon in Taurus was square his ascendant, square Pluto, and square Mars in Aquarius. He had a Mars, Pluto, and Mars ascendant opposition, all square his moon. And he was a confrontational and combative person, and he didn't have many friends, and he did manage to alienate a lot of people. He was mixed up in various levels of conspiracy theory, but then with that Mars opposite Pluto and the moon square Pluto and Pluto on the ascendant and the sun in the 8th house, there is something very Plutonic stroke Scorpionic of his chart in not an easy way. So I'm not surprised that he was caught up in a lot of stuff, and he is not your typical Pisces with Taurus moon. Similarly, the horoscope of the great American comedian Jerry Lewis, Pisces Sun with Taurus moon. But his Taurus moon was completely unaspected. We didn't really see that sort of possessive or accumulative side of him. Instead, we saw the exact conjunction. Exact. 1 in 5,000 of the Sun with Uranus in the 9th house in his chart. His Sun was at 25 degrees 22 of Pisces. His Uranus was at 25 degrees 25 of Pisces. He was quick, eclectic, fast, innovative, different, challenging. And you could never pin him down. You could never predict what he was going to say or do next. He did have the Sun, Uranus, pretty much exactly also trine Saturn. And I consider him to be far more astute and intelligent than his public image might have demonstrated. A third example of Pisces with the moon in Taurus is the British comedian Dick Emery, who was the forerunner for many people today in terms of transvestitism and gender ambiguity. I think that's a good way of putting it. He was a Pisces with the moon in Taurus. He had the Sun conjunct Jupiter, conjunct retrograde Mercury in Pisces in the 4th house of the home and mother, all nicely sextile to his moon in Taurus. With that Mercury retrograde exactly conjunct Jupiter, he did have a kind of quick wit about him that was actually quite self-demeaning at times, but there was nothing nasty about his chart at all. I'm sure he was a genuinely nice guy. And the fourth and final chart with Pisces with Taurus moon is that of the film actress Julie Walters. Sun in Pisces, moon in Taurus. The moon in Taurus is square her Leo ascendant and square her Mercury-Venus conjunction in Aquarius on the descendant. But these are not challenging. Well, they are challenging, but they're not nasty aspects. It's very innovative, very futuristic with that moon square or that Aquarius stuff with Leo rising. And the Sun in Pisces was also trine her Uranus in the 12th house. So I do see Julie Walters as someone who's always going to be breaking boundaries, pushing forward, pushing the future. And some of the work she did as both a comedian, especially with Victoria Wood, and as an actress in many of her films, was always pushing boundaries and pushing stereotypes. Sun in Pisces, moon in Taurus, sensual, good with food, grounded most of the time, empathic and compassionate, but also a way bit more unusual, zany, eclectic and stimulating than you might think on the surface. Catch you next time.